Hello, today we're going to see brain-based learning. But what brain-based learning is? When a teacher takes what he or she knows about the brain, development, and learning, and combines those factors in an intelligent way to connect and incite the student desire to learn. Or combining emotional factor and skill knowledge into a cognitive tool. But first of all, start talking more about brains. How do you think is your brain like? Is your brain like a calash, a raisin, a pillowcase, or a grapefruit? No. Our brains are like a jungle. But why? Well, all the parts of the brain participate with each other, and each of them has own function. Also, there is a natural pruning or neural pruning that occurs when part of the brain are not used. Now, let's see how our brain is complex. First, we have the cellular level. It is complex by 3 pints of liquid, 3 pounds of mass, 10 billion of nerve cells or neurons, and 10 times more numerous glial cells that support, insulate, and nourish the neurons. Now that we have seen the brain's complexity, let's see the parts of the brain. First, the brainstem. Second, the cerebellum, limbic system, and cortex. All of them have different abilities. The frontal lobe cortex is in charge of creativity, choosing, optimism, context planning, problem solving, and pattern making. The upper temporal lobe is in charge of comprehension, relevance, link to past or experience, hearing, memory, and meaning. Lower frontal lobe has to do with speaking and language. Occipital lobe is in charge of visual processing, patterns, discovery. The parietal lobe has to do with motor, primary sensory areas, insight, languages, function. And the last one, but not less important, the cerebellum, and it is in charge of motor, motion, neurally learning, cognition, balance, and posture.
Now, let's talk about neurons, a very important part of the brain. Information, feelings, and emotions travel into the brain throughout neurons. These neurons are connecting to other neurons, muscles, and glands. Each neuron has many branches that solicit connect with others. When we are learning things, electrical messages travel from one neuron to another over and over. Neurons send and receive chemical information or messages for behaviors. They can be a millimeter in length as long as a meter. They contain tubular extensions that are designed to communicate quickly with specific cells in the body network. This is a transportation system, much like a phone system. The brain has both nerve cells and glial cells. The neurons, agents of cognition. The glial cells act as a scaffolding or insulation for impulses. The insulation increases the speed of the neural electrical messages. How does the brain determine what is important? The brain determines emotions and attention that are the principal processes of it. There are 2 types of emotions. The primary emotions, those are innate responses and assemble life-saving behaviors quickly. The secondary emotions that are also innate reactions, emotions of enjoyment and pleasure. The students need to talk about their emotions. It can happen through games, cooperative learning, field trips, interactive projects, and use of humor. Another important thing for students to learn quickly is to limit emotional stress.
Now, we are going to see 12 principles of brain-based teaching learning. Number 1. The brain is a parallel processor. The brain ceaselessly performs many functions simultaneously. Thoughts, emotion, imagination, and predisposition operate concurrently and interact with other brain processes involving health, maintenance, and the expansion of knowledge. Education must embrace and use all the dimensions of parallel processing. Number 2. Learning enhances the entire physiology. The brain functions according to physiological rules. Learning is as natural as breathing. and it is possible to either inhibit or facilitate it. In fact, the actual reading of the brain is affected by our life and educational experience. Anything that affects our physiological functioning affects our capacity to learn. Number 3. Learning is developmental. The brain absorbs information or is directly aware, but it also absorbs information that lies beyond the immediate focus of attention. In fact, the brain responds to the entire sensory context in which teaching and communication occur. These peripheral signals are extremely important. Educators, therefore, can and should pay extensive attention to all facets of the education environment.
Number 4. The humans have many things in common. We have the same set of systems, but we also are very, very different. According to the Harvard University study, every single brain of human is totally unique and becomes more unique as we age. Each brain works better when the facts and skills are real experiences. Every brain simultaneously perceives and creates parts and wholes. Moreover, two brain hemispheres reduce the information into parts and perceive holistically at the same time. Number 6. The learning always involves conscious and unconscious process. Our body and brain learn physically and mentally and affectively. For that reason, much of our learning is the result of the unconscious processing as a communicate meanings. That means that much understanding may not occur during a class. It may occur in hours, weeks, or months later. As a conclusion, the teacher must organize what to do as to facilitate the consequent and conscious processing on experiences by the students.
Number 7. The search for meaning is innate. As everybody knows, each person seeks to make sense out of what she or he sees or hears, and it's an innate quality of every human being. A great example of this is children. They want to discover everything by touching the things, asking their parents what their names are, their use, and if they are babies, they like to discover by experimenting the things. When a person doesn't know what something means, he or she speculates, experiments, tests questions, and hypotheses. We are all have what has been called an explanatory drive. In practice, this means that everyone tends to filter input, organize information and experiences, and ask questions according to what they are interested in and care about. Number 8. Emotions are critical to learning. Cognitions and emotion interact. Neuroscience now shows that emotion involved in every thought, decision and response. Powerful learning is enhanced by rich emotional experience, guided and moderated by higher order functions. In fact, emotion and physical reactions are so much part of understanding and comprehending text that psychologist Eugene Gendlin describes the link in terms of the phrase felt meaning, and the neuroscientist Antonia Damasio talks of the feeling of what happens. This means that the way a person feels about an idea or skill always influences how well it's understood or mastered. Number 9. Learning is enhanced by challenge, inhibited by threat, and it is associated with helplessness or fatigue. A great deal of research from such disciplines as neuroscience, creativity theory, stress theory, and perceptual psychology shows that effective mental functioning can be sabotaged by fears associated with helplessness. The brain or mind literally become less effective and people lose access to their own capacities for higher order functioning and creative when the survival response kicks in. The dose calls this response the low road, and Olsen and Sexton calls it pretty rigidity. It is triggered by such factors as being overwhelmed, losing control, experiencing excessive stress, and meaninglessness.
To continue with, let's talk about the principle number 10, which is called the search for meaning through patterning. What does patterning mean? Patterning is the organization and categorization of information. Namely, it is the way in which we tie or connect our previous knowledge with the new one. The main characteristic of this principle is a learning cycle, which consists in using knowledge, the desire to acquire knowledge, using the knowledge again, and so on. This characteristic explains how students feel the desire to learn and get new knowledge, and the need of using it. When pupils have already used what they have learned, they feel the need of getting new knowledge again, and they repeat the cycle. A technique that teachers should use is showing pictures of different cat races. Children know they are cats, but what they will learn are the different races that exist. Let's continue with principle number 11, which is brain organizes memory in different ways. In this principle, the retrieval of knowledge depends upon how the information was stored. If students' brains consider the information meaningless, it will make the retrieval process harder and won't be satisfactory for students. Another point that organizes memory is the connection of what pupils know to what they are interested in. Students will always be different and will have their own interests. A good example for this is the case in which some students enjoy math class because they are interested in using numbers, while some others prefer languages or literature. There are two types of memory. In the first place, we have short-term memory, which is in charge of saving knowledge just for a moment to help students complement a quiz or an exam. But why do they save it for a moment? Because the information is meaningless for pupils. Their brains consider that information won't help them out of the class. On the contrary, we find long-term memory, which is the one that saves information that students' brains consider interesting and meaningful, because it will help them about the class. The last but not the least, we have the principle number 12. The brain is a social brain. That is, our brain learns more and better when it interacts with other brains. Pupils learn much more and better when they socialize, interact, and share information with other pupils.